morning. My name is Mihai Pascadi. Please do not hesitate to contact me later on if you should have any kind of questions. I would like to start by thanking Christian and Pablo, spoke just earlier before to making a very clear statement. First of all, BPM, yes, it's a software tool, but on the other hand, it's another way of managing businesses and organizations. So basically, it's a management discipline, and at the same time, it's, of course, a software and application tool. If it were to keep just one idea from the following 15 minutes, I would like to add, to say that the basic and fundamental thing about business process management is that it is the way to excellence. It's the way to go in order to achieve excellence in running businesses. So maybe if this idea goes through after my presentation, it means it achieved its goal. Let's talk a little bit about that. Now, of course, there are several excellence standards. There is the North American standard promoted by the National Institute for Standards and Technology. There is the European Foundation for Quality Management talking about standards. And of course, there are several chapters which refer to what excellence means. But fundamentally, excellence means these two things. First of all, you have to be able to have a strong strategy, and you have to be able to execute that strategy. So companies capable to develop the right strategy and have the right execution would then be the ones that are excellent companies. They are balanced and predictable, and they have a sustainable success at low risks. Of course, you can see the other ones. Should you have the right strategy but maybe a weaker execution, then you are on the market share gains, but of course you would not be yet an excellent company. And then there are the other companies with excellent execution but maybe poorer strategy, and then you are on the profit wave. But the question is, for how long? Well, if we are talking about strategy and execution, we should be looking then at three levels. Execution depends on two things in the end. Execution means operations and managing your processes, and then, of course, having the right people. Basically, having the right people is fundamental always for the success of the organization. So we should say that if we have the right people, we should be able to develop the right strategy, and we should be able to put in place the right operations in order to become an excellent company. But then, if we look closer at that, having the right strategy and having the right people comes back to operations. And this is something we are going to go deeper a little bit later into. Processes, okay, let's look at that. Let's look at process architectures in organizations. We at Avantera use this kind of model. We divide process in four main categories. We have management processes, we have support processes, we have input and output processes, and we have the main value chain. MVC stands for main value chain. Basically, when you run an organization, you have to make sure that you have the right organizational planning and development, that you manage well your processes, your projects, and your programs, that you have the right human resources in place, and you actually run those resources, which are the fundamental ones, in the right way. And then, of course, you're looking at support processes. Then you would have indirectly productive infrastructure administration, budget, finance and accounting, knowledge and IT systems administration, general internal services, input and output, obviously supply chain management, the equivalent of, if you want, all the processes and activities related to that, and customer relationship management. And then, of course, the main value chain, and we divide that into three layers, as you can see. First of all, your product lines have to be developed, product and services line have to be developed, and then they have to be maintained throughout the product life cycle. And in order to have the product life cycle well managed, you have to have the right productive infrastructure. So you have to manage the productive infrastructure in order to support your products and services throughout their lifetime. On the other hand, of course, you have another kind of services that are supporting the business lines. And of course, on this layer here, we can see actually the reason to exist of any organization or company. As it was already mentioned here before, if you are talking about business management and business process management, then it really doesn't matter much in what industry you are. BPM is actually a solution for any kind of organization. Should it be a business, a company? Should it be an NGO? Should it be a financial institution? Should it be a public administration institution? No matter of which category it would belong to, BPM is the right solution for that. Now what we see here is basically a classification of the processes in an organization. But of course, we can go deeper into that. And if we take, for example, marketing and sales, and we'll be looking at that kind of category, then we'll be seeing that the group of processes, market and sell products and services, would have some subgroups of processes, which are the ones depicted here. And if we go even deeper into that and take, for example, the develop and manage marketing plans, then you can see the participant processes or member processes of that subgroup of processes. Going back a little bit, this would raise a quite significant question. Now, we have been looking at several layers, we are going down details. There must be a lot of processes in an organization, and that is true. We will see that. But this kind of architecture was one specific to, let's say, a company. If we are talking about public administration, then of course public administration should be developing strategy and managing the development of the area of public service that it is being running. Of course, any public institution in one way or another provides regulation and generates law. On the other hand, it looks at the sector, whether if it's an economic or social sector, and it has to monitor it and control it. And then, of course, there are techniques and ways in which it can influence the way that sector that is being run is being also at the same time adjusted, and of course the public service is being delivered. But the surrounding areas are basically the same. It's just that the customer in this case, it's no longer, a customer in the regular manner. It's the citizen or the company as a customer of public services, and that's all you have to have in the end. Now, this is not the only way to look at classifying processes in an organization. What you see here is the first large group of processes as being classified by the American Productivity and Quality Center. If you go on their site, again, American Productivity and Quality Center, you will see that they provide what they call a process classification framework for any kind of industry. Not really for any kind, but for major industries. You will find there that their classification of the processes is in two major groups, not four as in our case. It's operating processes and then support and management processes. And of course, they are talking mainly about the same major things. You have to develop vision and strategy, you have to develop and manage production, products and services, you have to market and sell them, you have to deliver them, and then of course you have to take care of the relationship with the customer after sales. Basically, this is very familiar already because we saw it in a different way on the previously presented model. If we are looking at the management and support services in the APQC classification, we are looking at developing and managing human capital, manage information technology, manage financial resources, acquire, construct and manage assets, manage enterprise risk, compliance and resiliency, manage external relationships, develop and manage business capabilities. Again, quite familiar. These are all the things that are really being done in any kind of organization. So let's be clear. Of course, in the detail of the processes, we will see the differences. In many cases, a different process can bring the competitive advantage. But fundamentally, we will see whether if we are talking about profit-oriented organizations or non-profit-oriented organizations, these are the major activity areas common to all of them. This is one more reason why this is, of course, at the same time, a management discipline. It's about how things are being done in organizations in order to be successful. Going further from here, we just arranged mapping those chapters given by the American Productivity and Quality Center on our model for organizations, and we get here the idea that, of course, they are very similar, right? Management functions provided by management process groups, support functions, input functions, output functions, and the main value chain. This area, it doesn't mean that these areas are not covered, are just classified in a slightly different manner there, but they are there as well. Looking again back at this, how many processes? Well, it depends. We as a small company decided, although we have more than 20 processes, we decided to limit our functioning, in terms of BPM at 20 processes. That was fine for us. It covered our key processes. We are a small organization. We should keep it simple. However, based on our experience and during time we modeled maybe close to 6,000 processes for different organizations. Based on that, you could say that a larger organization could have anywhere in between 150 and maybe in some cases they could go very high. We never met such a case, but we can imagine the situation in which such a case could be met. Such a case could be met, for example, in the situation when there are versions, close but however different versions of the same process in different areas of the organization, in different geographies of the organization. For example, sometimes legislation is not allowing you to work the same way in Romania and maybe in Indonesia. And then if that is the case, of course, you should adapt. You have similar processes, but not the same process. Now this is showing quite a high complexity of what is happening. The APQC model is showing roughly around 300 processes for the generic organization. So, making a step back, again, if we are talking about achieving excellence, we should be looking at the three things: people, operations, and strategy. But now looking the other way around on a centric approach based on management by process, if we are talking about people, having the right people means going through, and you do not need to read those, but those are the standard, let's say, or generic processes for human resources management. Basically, you have to make sure that you develop and manage the policies, that you recruit, source personnel, that you develop and counsel employees, etc. And this is valid for any kind of organization, should it be a public one or a private one, company. So, if we want to have the right people in the organization, develop them and motivate them, we need to have a number of processes in place and make sure that those processes are functioning. On the other hand, if we are looking at the strategy, well, again, having the right strategy means having the right processes in place. You have to define the business concept and long-term vision. You have to develop business strategy. And then, once you develop the strategy, you have to actually implement it. So many strategic initiatives. Again, do we want to have the right strategy? We have to have the right processes in place. So basically, if this pyramid is nothing else than the way to define excellence, having the right BPM solution is the right way to achieve excellence. There is one more thing that we should be talking about. When looking at instruments and software solutions for what we intend to do in order to improve our organizations, of course we have to look at these aspects. We are living in a quite complex environment, but we all want simplicity in everything that is being done. We are looking at keeping under control our organizations, but doing that in a flexible way. And of course, we would all like to have a low total cost of ownership. And total cost of ownership, when it comes to traditional IT solutions, is always high. Traditional solutions would always take maybe millions and will take years. I am sure that in this room there are many people knowing about projects who have been taking a lot, much than the initially provisioned budget, and a lot longer than the time that has been initially planned for. So basically, going to this area would require a revolution. Now, earlier Pablo mentioned that. It's actually that what we are looking at. It's the cloud that's coming. That is going to bring a significantly lower TCO. So what we want in the end is bending those axes and making sure that we get the low TCO, that we manage the complexity in a simple way, and that we have at the same time the flexibility we need, because sometimes we do need to not obey the procedure if we want to go over an obstacle. So if we want to do that, we have to be flexible, and the solution should be supporting, not respecting the initially planned procedure, but of course having the right control, and later knowing why we went another different way than initially provided by the procedure. To see that a little bit, we invite you at a little bit later today at 14 hours 30 Bucharest time to see a Romanian BPM solution called Simple BPM. And of course, at this point in time, I'd like to thank you. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you have any kind of questions. And of course, if you have right now questions, I will be glad to answer those. Thank you. Please.